Hi everyone, my name is Nick, and this week's plant of the week is Peperomia quadrangularis. This is commonly referred to as the beetle peperomia, and this is native to Central America. Hello, sweet pea. And this one gets its name quadrangularis, if I'm not mistaken, as all the other houseplants that I'm aware of that are quadrangularis get their name from their stems being square-shaped. I will say, however, with this one that these stems are very, very thin. But if I'm feeling them between my fingers and I'm thinking very, very hard about it and using my imagination as hard as I can, I guess they are square-shaped. I mean, they're totally square-shaped. They're just very small, so it's like kind of a reach, but I can tell you that the leaves and the flowers are very much not square-shaped. So this is one of my favorite peperomias, and I've been very happy to see that in the last year or so. This is becoming much more prevalent on the houseplant market. This is also a very succulent peperomia. You're going to treat this one much more like a succulent than you would a typical peperomia. So one thing to bear in mind there. So with the light with this houseplant, you're going to want to put this in some pretty bright light, not harsh light, like nothing a cactus would sit in, but I'd say an east or west facing window would be ideal. Keeping in mind that if this does get too much harsh sunlight, these leaves can burn. It is still pretty deep green, and a peperomia, they don't want to be fried by any means in most cases, but this one will take a good amount of sunlight. Just be wary, because once these leaves get burnt, there's no coming back from that. But I have mine currently in an east-facing window. I used to grow it in a west-facing window in my old apartment. I had tried one in a south-facing window one time, and that thing burned. I had to get rid of it. So take it from me, but the soil with this houseplant, you're going to want to use a typical peperomia mix, which is just like a very gritty, coarse mixture that's more kind of in between what you would give a houseplant and a succulent. Think kind of what you would typically be giving like a Hoya, like a mixture that's going to include some more perlite and some more bark, and staying away from soils that are going to be a little bit too loamy and going to hold on to moisture for too long. That is the kiss of death when it comes to peperomia. If you water your peperomia too much, they are going to rot. I can't think of a houseplant that will rot quicker on you than peperomia upon overwatering. So I don't water this very often, keeping in mind it's in the same soil that it's been in for the past 3 years, so I should consider repotting it soon. I'm watering this thing probably once a week, but if you're just getting settled with your Peperomia quadrangularis, or if you're worried that the planter's too big or that the soil is going to be too loamy, I would probably go on like an 8 to 10 day schedule roughly. Of course, use your best judgment. I don't like to stick by a schedule, but that's roughly what I'm doing with mine, and it seems to be growing very, very well. It is a very slow-growing plant to get started. When I first got mine a couple years ago, it was just inside the planter here, but a year or two beyond that, it's really started to just spill its way down the side of the planter here, as you can see, and it's practically enveloping this entire planter. You can barely see anymore, and that's kind of what I love most about this houseplant, is it's really just filled out so much, and it's gained quite a unique amount of character in my home. I really enjoy it. I'm pretty lackadaisical when it comes to fertilizing my peperomias in general, but my Peperomia quadrangularis I've been very set and forget with, as at one point this was a very, very, very slow growing houseplant, so I didn't really see it fit. But now that it's been growing a little bit more actively, I'm just giving it fertilizer probably like once or twice throughout the growing season. And I'm always cutting that in half, as you normally should be doing if you're using a typical houseplant fertilizer. It's just best to err on less fertilizer than more, because you can burn your plants with too much fertilizer and you can't come back from that. It's just like burning their foliage from the sun. There's no coming back from that. But as I mentioned, this is like a very set and forget plant, how I've kept it inside this planter for some time. Peperomias, I am extremely set and forget with. I am not repotting my peperomias more than once every couple of years. In fact, one of the tips I most often recommend when bringing a peperomia into your home is to leave it inside the plastic planter, because if that thing's already growing out nicely and it's pretty full inside there, it's going to be pretty tight, and peperomias do not like to be swimming in soil by any means. They like to be kept pretty tight, similar to a Hoya, as we were talking about earlier with how they also appreciate a similar soil. So just something to bear in mind there. Definitely best to treat this much more like a succulent than like a fern per se. That would be definitely a death sentence there. But one other thing that I really enjoy about peperomias across the board is that they are non-toxic. So if you do have any nippy cats or dogs or children in your home, you can fill your home with peperomia, and you do not have to worry about not having a large variety of houseplants, because all peperomia are so different, and that's one of the main reasons why I am so obsessed obsessed with them. But this one just has such a wonderful appearance. It reads much more like a Discidia, if you're familiar with like Discidia ovata, the watermelon Discidia. It reads much more like that vibe, so it doesn't look as much like a peperomia as many of the other ones, so I just really appreciate that it's a little bit more of an outlier. And last but not least, to propagate this houseplant is pretty easy. You can just propagate it from stem cuttings, which is a very quick way to go ahead and have a nice full plant if you're just taking a couple stems and filling out a little planter to get started. But you can also replant the leaves into the soil. With peperomia, you just need a single leaf to do some propagation, similar to many succulents. So if you're ever knocking off a couple leaves here and there, which I do all the time, every time I'm handling this houseplant, I knock a leaf off here and there. I just place them back in the soil. They'll regrow over time as they root into place, and that's probably a reason why my houseplant is even fuller than it was when I first got my hands on it. So that's going to do it for this week's plant of the week, Peperomia quadrangularis, or the beetle peperomia. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at phillyfoliage, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next week for plant of the week. Have a great time.